Are you tucked in and cozy? Good. Let's begin our story for tonight. It's called The Boy Who Wove Words. It's a bedtime story all about a young boy named William Shakespeare. A long, long time ago, in a quiet little town called Stratford-upon-Avon, a gentle river flowed past, and you could hear church bells chiming softly in the evening. And there, a baby boy was born. His name was William. Now, nobody knew it just yet, but this little boy would one day fill the entire world with his stories. You see, our story really begins when William was just a small boy, a boy who loved to listen. He loved the sound of words more than almost anything. He loved the way his mother's voice would rise and fall as she told him stories by the soft, warm glow of candlelight. He loved listening to all the chatter in the marketplace. And oh, the happy songs of the traveling performers who would pass right through his town. So while all the other children were busy chasing each other through the fields, William, well, he would often find a quiet spot to just sit and listen. He would watch the world swirl around him, and deep in his mind, he'd start to imagine all sorts of wonderful tales. One day, he asked his mother, where do stories come from? And she just smiled this gentle smile, and she placed a small book in his hands. Stories come from here, she said, tapping the book, and she whispered, from here, as she gently tapped over his heart. As William grew a little older, that dream of stories inside him, it began to grow, too. It was a very quiet dream, kind of a secret one that no one else could really see, but it was there. And it was getting stronger every single day. As William got older, life got a little bit harder for his family. Things weren't always easy, and he actually had to leave school earlier than he wanted to. But that never, ever stopped him from learning. He read everything he could find about kings and queens and brave knights and faraway lands. And at night, long after the rest of the town was sound asleep, William would stay awake by a single flickering candle, secretly writing down little lines of poetry. He didn't know if anyone would ever read them, but he wrote them anyway, just because he loved the words so much. And then, one day, William made a very brave choice. He decided he was going to travel to the great, big city of London. So he left his quiet little town and journeyed to a place that was so loud and crowded and just buzzing with life. And right in the heart of that big city, he found the most magical place. A theater where stories would come alive right before your eyes, all under the open sky. And as he watched the actors on the stage and he saw the crowd laugh and cry together, William felt something stir deep inside him. This, he whispered to himself, this is where stories belong. And very soon, William began to make his own magic at a really famous theater called the Globe. He started writing plays of his very own, stories about young lovers and brave princes and even mischievous fairies. But at first, he was so worried. What if people laughed at his stories? What if nobody cared about the words he had written down? But then, one evening, as the actors spoke his words out loud on the stage, a hush fell over the whole crowd. The audience gasped. And then, just a moment later, the entire theater was filled with the sound of wonderful, warm laughter. And then came the applause, a big, thunderous, happy sound. William realized something truly beautiful that night. Stories have this amazing power to connect all of our hearts together. He went on to write so many wonderful plays and poems. But he did something else too. Something that was almost like magic. He didn't just tell stories. He actually invented new words. Words that you and I still use every single day. Words like lonely and eyeball and even the word bedroom. Isn't that amazing? They all came from the imagination of that quiet boy from Stratford. After many, many years, William's journey brought him all the way back home. But his words would travel on forever. After years and years of writing and wonder in the big city, an older and wiser William returned home to Stratford. He'd walk by that same gentle river he had loved so much as a boy, just listening to the wind whisper through the trees. And he knew something truly special. He knew that even though he was getting older, his stories never would. They would live on in theaters and in classrooms and in whispered bedtime tales, just like this one. His words, he knew, would always, always breathe. And now, as our story comes to a gentle close, there's just one last thing for us to think about. And that's the story that lives inside of you. So before you drift all the way off to sleep tonight, just think about this for a quiet moment. What stories live inside of you? What wonderful words are just waiting in your heart, waiting to be told? Maybe one day, the world will get to listen to your voice too. Sweet dreams, little storyteller.